Hello, my name is Leslie Spees. I'm with InfluenceHR Consulting, and we are kicking off your coaching program today with 7 Habits of Great Leaders. Today, I'm just going to kind of provide an overview, and we're going to dive into this deeper as we go through the coaching program. I'm going to start with a quote from Simon Sinek. Let us all be the leaders that we wish we had. So, why are managers so important? I'm going to share a few statistics with you. They account for 70% of an employee's motivation and are probably the most important element in retention. They're also the number one reason that employees leave. And there's more. 70% of people report that their manager has greater impact on their mental health than their therapist or doctor, and equal to the impact of their spouse or partner. So, no pressure, y'all. Ineffective management results in turnover, and turnover is expensive. It's 1/2 to 3 times an employee's annual salary. Disengagement, quiet quitting, that is also expensive. 34% of an employee's annual salary for every disengaged employee. And that means that they're really just not putting forth effort beyond the bare minimum. And loss of productivity. The solution is to practice the 7 habits that I'll share in this program. So I want you to think about the best managers you've had and the behaviors and traits that they exhibited, and think about the worst managers that you've had and the behaviors and traits that they exhibited. We'll be talking about this in coaching, but thinking about it in advance and maybe jotting down some ideas would be helpful. The top 7 habits of bad bosses: disrespectful, break promises, have unrealistic or unclear expectations, play favorites, overly critical, micromanage, and don't listen. Here's some things you might hear them say. You need to leave early next Thursday? That sounds like a personal problem. You need to work it out without missing work. If you don't want the job, I'll find someone who does. I don't want to hear any excuses. Just do what you're told to do. If I wanted your ideas, I'd ask for them. Work isn't supposed to be fun. That's why they call it work. I'm the manager and I said so. That's why. I really like The Office, so you'll be seeing some memes and GIFs from The Office throughout this program. Let's talk about the difference between managers and leaders. So I will be using these terms a little bit interchangeably. They're both important, but let's look at the differences. Managers make sure that operations run smoothly and that the job is done. They're focused on tasks and today. And leaders inspire, motivate, and influence people. They're focused on people and tomorrow. So, which one of these is more important? Really, they are both important, but whenever you can slip into the leadership role, you're going to get more ownership and engagement from employees. We've talked about bad managers, so now we're going to talk about some traits of good ones. These are the 7 habits of high retention managers. If you haven't gotten it already, I'm going to give you a book that has information on each of these. And we're just going to go through again as an overview today. So the first is ignite purpose. Everybody wants purpose and meaning in their work. I really don't think that there is anybody that enjoys putting widgets together with no really purpose behind what they're doing or meaning in that. A clear purpose unites team members around a shared cause and helps foster a larger emotional investment in their work. How to do it? So, the first thing you want to do is look at your organization's mission or purpose. So, what's the difference between those two? Mission shares oftentimes what the organization does, and sometimes it shares why they do it. Purpose goes a little bit deeper to share, what the organization does that makes a difference in the larger world. So look at what your organization has. If they don't have something that's particularly compelling, you may want to share some feedback about that. Then one of the things that you can do is work with employees to articulate a team purpose. And this could be done in a meeting or something. What is your team's purpose? How do they contribute to the larger purpose of the organization? And then help employees understand how their job fits in with the greater purpose. So I'll share an example from an organization that I worked with. It was a healthcare organization, and their mission was to provide remarkable patient experiences. They did a really good job reinforcing that, and you could even ask the sanitation worker or janitor what they were doing, and they would say, I am creating safe, clean spaces to provide a remarkable patient experience. So everybody was pretty much able to make that connection between what they're doing and what the organization is trying to achieve. Build trust. We'll be delving into this deeper, but building trust with employees and within the team is foundational and critical to your effectiveness as a leader. 4 best ways to build trust. Number 1, show respect. Number 2, be a person of integrity. That is defined as doing the right thing for the right reason, even when no one is looking. Demonstrate humility, which is really about putting others before yourself. And extend trust to others. If you're not extending trust, then they're not going to trust you in return. Trust is a fragile thing, hard to earn and easy to lose. Sources say that it takes 5 times the effort to rebuild trust if it's lost than to build it in the first place. The third habit is managing yourself. According to Google's Project Oxygen, employees want managers who are even-keeled and don't lose their cool, which makes sense. If you as the manager are freaking out, then it's going to roll downward and everybody's going to freak out. So you want to learn to manage yourself well, which starts with self-awareness or knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, weaknesses, triggers, sources of bias, all of those things. And when you encounter a situation that's stressful or emotional, being able to scan potential responses and pick one that is the best for the situation so that you can thoughtfully respond rather than just reacting. A quote I like, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. And I already really talked about what self-management is. The fourth habit is to be a good coach. Today's employees don't want managers, they want coaches. So when you look at trends for the generations, the younger generations, millennials and Gen Zs, really do not respond well to the more autocratic style of management, and they're probably not going to stay with an organization that manages that way. They want a more coach-like approach. So here's some of the ways, oops, I got a random thing popping up. Here's some of the ways that you can be a good coach and that you'll learn in this program. So feedback, giving frequent and meaningful positive and developmental feedback. Coaching, less fixing and more guiding others towards their own solutions. So we tend to, as managers, want to give advice and fix things, and sometimes we think that's our role. But the more that we can coach others and guide them towards their own solutions, they're going to grow and they're going to be more engaged. Questions, so be curious and ask good open-ended questions that start with who, what, when, and where. And growth, help employees tap into their strengths and grow. Again, there is a lot more to that, just an overview today. And listening well is critical. So you've heard of active listening. That's what we're going to learn in this program. Most of us know how to do it. We just don't always do it well. Number 5, practice accountability. High retention managers hold themselves and others accountable for results. Stephen Covey says accountability breeds responsibility. Without accountability, you are not likely to get the kind of response that you want, if any response at all. Accountability is taking personal responsibility for results, good and bad. As the leader, it starts with you. Be a role model, admit your mistakes, follow up and follow through on your commitments. Then practice the 5 C's of accountability. These are clarity. You have to have clear expectations and goals, or people don't know what they're being held accountable to. You have to have the courage to have difficult conversations and interactions to hold others accountable. Collaboration, wherever possible, collaborating with others on expectations and goals, you're going to get more buy-in. Consistency, and I mean that at 2 levels. Consistency in accountability, so holding employees, if you have one employee that has attendance issues and you have an accountability conversation with them, and you have another that's the same or worse, then you're not having that accountability conversation. That is not being consistent. And also consistency in providing feedback. And then 5 is sometimes you have to move to correction and even potentially termination if things don't improve. Communicate well is number 6. I'd like for you to think of someone in your organization who's a good communicator. What do they do that makes them good? Again, we will delve into this in coaching, but just something to think about in advance because I'm going to ask you that question. We will cover in the program 8 principles of communicating well, actively listening. I already mentioned that as part of being a good coach. Being clear, over communicating is really important. Sometimes you have to do what feels like that because most people have to hear things 7 times before it sticks. Give your message a 360. So if it's a difficult message, then maybe get some feedback from others on that message before you deliver it, whether it's in writing or verbally. Use your body language and tone to your advantage. We'll go in more detail on that. Affirm with actions. That really means walk the talk. Have meetings that don't suck and send emails that don't suck. Number 7, and these are in no particular order, by the way, is show you care. Show your team you care about them and their well-being. How to do it. Again, we got that random pop-up. Got to fix that. All right, so care. Show employees you care by knowing a little bit about them personally. So know, their kids' names, maybe their spouse, what they're involved in. If their kid has a soccer game over the weekend, ask how it went. If their spouse had surgery, ask how he or she is doing. If something seems off, do a caring check-in with the employee. Empathy, be empathetic when interacting with others. We'll go deep on empathy. Support well-being, assist employees with better well-being and blending work and life where possible. Some organizations, you have the benefit of maybe being able to offer some remote or hybrid work. That's not available in all organizations. But, people have lives outside of work, and providing some time off and being flexible with them and maybe providing them with some resources to support their well-being if they're caregivers or whatever is important. And appreciate. So show appreciation and provide meaningful recognition. So important. I'll share some statistics around why that's so important. I'm going to send you an assessment. It's called How Good is Your Leadership? It goes into these 7 areas and want you to think about what you're doing well and what your opportunities are based on that assessment. We will talk about it in coaching. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this, and I will look forward to meeting with you soon.